I'm going to tell the story of this luxury garden room extension. The design, the practical issues, building regulations, and what it would cost to build this garden room in 2025. I designed this garden room in Edinburgh, and I took these photos just after work finished a few months ago. The client is very happy with the end result, and I am proud of the design. But one thing that worries me is the cost to create projects like this have risen significantly over the past few years. If you are thinking of building a luxury garden room house extension in the UK, this is the video for you. If you want to skip ahead, there are chapter timestamps below. Let's get started. The existing house. The client's house is part of a new suburban development on the west side of Edinburgh. When I first met the client in 2021, there were still houses under construction at the end of the street. The back of the house faces south, with a steep hillside just the other side of the boundary fence. The rear garden is private, and the client wanted to create a space that would take advantage of this. He'd seen a previous design on my practice website and wanted something similar. A bespoke garden room that could be used all year round and would be a cut above your typical conservatory. The existing house has two rooms at the rear, the kitchen and the lounge. Both of these open onto the back garden, but like most homes in the UK, the access is abrupt. You are either inside or outside. The client liked the idea of an intermediate space, somewhere that is half inside and half outside, a place to sit outdoors when the weather is less than perfect. The client spent most of his time in the kitchen. They wanted to keep direct access from the kitchen to the garden. The lounge was less important, so it made sense to place the new space directly outside that room. The garden room extension design. The big design decision was whether the new garden room should be open to the house or separated by a doorway. The building regulations force us to make a choice here. If the garden room is open plan with the house, the amount of glass in that garden room will be strictly limited. I've made a video explaining this aspect of the building regulations in detail, and there's a link in the description if you want to check it out. The client needed more glass than the building regulations would allow if the garden room was open to the house, so from the outset we designed the new space to be separate from the house. This is how conservatories are dealt with under the building regulations, but it also allows garden rooms that are heated and insulated so they can be used all year round, provided their heating system has a separate circuit and a thermostat from the house. The decision to keep the garden room separate created a further dilemma. Because the lounge only had these French doors for natural light and ventilation, it had no other windows. If you are planning something like this, you need to be careful, because one defining characteristic of a legally habitable room under the building regulations is the requirement for natural light and ventilation. If you build a garden room in front of the only window in a room, it could lead to that room no longer being legally classified as habitable. The regs won't stop you from doing this, but the room may no longer be used as a living space or bedroom, and that could affect the sale value of the house. Fortunately, we had a workaround under the Scottish building regulations. You can see the notes on the drawings here. In simple terms, as long as the opening size of the new patio doors in the garden room are at least 1/30th the combined area of the lounge and the garden room, then the lounge could borrow ventilation from the garden room, provided its own existing door is at least 1/30th the floor area of the lounge. For natural light, the existing French door had to be at least 1/15th the area of the lounge. It could then borrow enough natural light from the new garden room to continue being a habitable room in its own right. It's worth pointing out that since this design was approved, the Scottish building regulations now require openable doors and windows to be larger for ventilation, at least 1/20th the floor area rather than 1/30th. Keep in mind that building regulations are updated regularly, so always take advice before going ahead. I offer online consultations to homeowners right across the UK. If you're interested, there's a link in my profile and in the description. While I was sure we could get enough daylight into the existing lounge to satisfy the regulations, I also added a roof light here, just above the French doors. This brings daylight right into the building, rather than just relying on the new patio doors, which are further away. From the outset, the design had a solid wall along this side of the garden room. This ensured privacy so the neighbour couldn't see inside, but it also gave my client somewhere to place a sofa and a TV. I also knew from the outset that the new patio doors should create an open corner, with no post getting in the way of the view. The doors were supplied by Sunflex UK, who sponsored the channel. They lock into each other when closed. The client wanted the space to be as tall as possible internally, and 3 meters is the maximum height of Sunflex sliding doors, so that set the ceiling height. I wanted the floor and the ceiling to flow seamlessly from inside to out. The floor is easy to achieve with a level threshold and gully drain to prevent rainwater running back into the room. The ceiling inside is plasterboard and outside a specified marine plywood with 3 coats of yacht paint. These two design decisions mean the garden room has no clear inside or outside when the patio doors are fully open, which is the effect we were going for. I also wanted a thin edge to the building without visible rainwater gutters and downpipes. And to achieve this, I designed the roof to fall inwards to a central gully, which drains to a downpipe on the sidewall. The regulations allow part of a roof less than 8 square meters to free drain over the edge, so that allows me to get the thin edge I'm looking for with exposed steel beams. Initially, the big idea was to extend those steel beams to create a ring beam that could accommodate a canopy or sail. This would be the intermediate space the client was looking for, right outside the kitchen. We started off with a dramatic fabric sail idea, but I also explored electrically operated awnings. I spoke to companies who make these for cafes and they turned out to be surprisingly expensive. In the end, we settled on using 2 basic fabric awnings, easily available online with eye bolts and carabinas to attach back to the steel frame. The client could put the awnings up or down in just a few minutes using a stepladder. Long story short, this element of the design was removed for cost-saving reasons. And this is the main part of the story. From when we started this project in 2021 to when it was finally complete in 2024, construction costs in the UK rose massively. The Bank of England inflation calculator shows the increase over that time period at 21%, but for the construction industry it's at least 3 times that amount. I've been making annual house extension cost videos on this channel since 2022. I take a deep dive into what it takes to build an extension based on my own projects. I try to be as transparent as possible with costs so that homeowners in the UK have detailed, up-to-date information and can make informed decisions. The majority of projects in my day job are alterations and extensions to private homes in the Edinburgh area. The huge increase in construction costs over time means that fewer people are able to afford to carry out work to their homes, and the pool of potential clients for my business is shrinking every year. It's a big worry. What it costs to build this garden room extension. You may be thinking at this point, if the design began in 2021, why did it take until the end of 2024 to complete the work? And there are 2 reasons for this. It took a long time to find a suitable builder, and the builder we eventually worked with was a small firm who took longer to carry out the work. I discussed the project with 5 different building firms in 2022, and none of them were willing to participate in a competitive tender at that time because they were all very busy. They would only agree to price the job on the basis of a direct negotiation. And this is where the contractor is guaranteed to get the work provided the cost is acceptable to the client. After much back and forth, eventually the client agreed to work with a builder who lived just down the street. This is Neil. He knew my client socially and he had built several small projects for other neighbours in the area. Neil doesn't have a big firm. He mostly works on his own, 1 project at a time, and brings in extra labourers when needed. This is as small as it's possible for a building firm to be, and it kept costs to a minimum, but that does not mean the project was cheap. The garden room that originally inspired my client was 15 square meters and wasn't as tall as our design. Back in 2018, this cost £40,000 plus VAT to build. That works out at around £2,600 plus VAT per square meter. Our design is almost twice as large at 28 square meters. It's taller and the roof extends much further out on 2 sides, so the steel frame is much bigger. This is the full cost breakdown for our project. The contractor's prices come to £117,211 plus VAT, and that doesn't include the cost of the patio doors, which come to £28,201 plus VAT. All in, this garden room design cost over £145,000 plus VAT. That works out at almost £5,200 plus VAT per square metre. This shows us 2 things. First off, the cost per square metre of this kind of work has doubled since 2018. Second, if you've watched my other videos, you know the going rate for normal or conventional house extension designs is around £3,500 plus VAT per square metre. We could have built a similar sized box, if you will, with modest PVC windows, no cantilever roof or big areas of glass for around £100,000 plus VAT. That means the cost difference between this type of design and more humdrum projects is at least 50%, but as with most things in life, you get what you pay for. I should point out the costs don't include the new paving and other landscaping work. That was done separately, but care was taken to make sure the external paving and internal tiles are the same non-slip porcelain. The original design cut down this window to form a doorway between the kitchen and the garden room, but this wasn't done in the end, although the client could carry out the work in the future if they wish. The steel frame cost £24,500 plus VAT, and the contractor and I shopped around to get the best price. The original engineer's specification asked for external steel to be galvanized, which is an expensive process. I worked with the engineer to change this specification to a multi-coat epoxy paint system that costs less but delivers the same weather protection. The existing house has an air source heat pump, and we would probably need to upgrade it to cope with heating the additional space in the garden room, so instead we specified an electric underfloor heating system. This costs less to install than a wet underfloor heating system, although they usually cost more to run, but the client's home already has solar panels and a battery, so these offset the running costs of heating the garden room. The Sunflex patio doors. The most expensive element of the entire project are the sliding patio doors. The whole garden room design revolves around the doors, so getting them right was a priority. I've used Sunflex UK products on many of my projects over the years, and they offer a great balance between cost and quality. The two main reasons I work with Sunflex is because they produce quality products, and they only sell those products through an improved installer network. Now, there are aluminium frame manufacturers who sell to anyone, so the quality of installation can vary massively. I worked with Mitchell Glass, the improved installer for Sunflex in Scotland. They sent their technicians to site twice to take measurements, explain the process to Neil, our contractor, and to check the site was ready just prior to installing the glazing. This is Kevin from Mitchell Glass talking through some of our technical issues on site. He gave Neil, the contractor, a section of the glazing frame so he could make sure the opening would fit the frame. The installation went smoothly, and the end result works great. If you want to see other examples of Sunflex windows and doors, including the price, check out these videos I made. There's a link up here and in the description below. Summary. I always try to be transparent in my videos so that homeowners in the UK have as much relevant information as possible, but I am worried that with costs doubling since 2018, fewer people will be able to afford to build anything. With both labour and material costs increasing, there is no easy way to reduce the price of construction. But I'm open to suggestions, so if you have inside info on ways to achieve this, let me know about it in the comments. My name is Neil, and if you would like my advice about your project, no matter where it is in the UK, check out the reallifearchitecture.co.uk website. You can book a consultation with me and get specific advice about your property. There's a link in the description, and please read the terms and conditions before you book. If you found this video useful, check out this playlist and be sure to drop a like. It really helps the channel.